Hi, welcome back to the shed for the second episode of my Stratocaster build, where we're going to pick up from where we left off last week by routing out all of the cavities on the body. This little guy is going to get put to a lot of work tonight. Thankfully, he does okay. Okay, so remember last time we kind of started this build by getting everything set out from the centre line that we put onto the body blank, and we've hogged out kind of quite a bit of the waste, but there's obviously still quite a lot to remove from all these routes. So I'm going to get the template back on. We'll line that up as best we can with the marks that we put on initially. Same old, super glue and masking tape on that. And then I've got the little router with the big base set up, and we'll just work our way through and get all of this routed out. Now, I've been doing some work around at my mum's for a little while now, and some of my tools are still over there. I thought I'd got everything back, but I haven't, and it turns out my vernier is still there. So I'm going old school with a ruler and the ruler stop that some of you might remember, because this was one of my very first YouTube projects, and currently I think it's either still my best performing video or my second best performing video, which is quite funny because the most complicated bit of equipment I had back in those days was my phone. That was not the time I wanted to run out of accelerator. Okay, and that's stuck down nice and securely now. So in the first instance, what I'm going to do, I've got the smallest router bit that I've got chucked up, and I'm going to take a few passes, and I'm just going to take everything down to the depth of 20 millimeters that I want for the pickup routes. And then there's an insert that goes in to the pickup routes, which will then form the control cavity route. And I'll take that down and the output jack route down to the 35 millimeters that we want. I'm thinking that this route will be fine at 20 mil as well, so we'll leave that. So just get my ear defenders on and we can get routing. So that's the first pass done. I'm about 18 mil down now from the top of the template. So in total, this is a 10 mil thick template. I need to go down to 30 mil. So I'm going to do another light pass to take me down to about 22, and then probably another 2 passes to get down to the depth that I want. But I have to say this older is cutting quite nicely. So far, so good. Okay, so there's the pickup routes down to depth and these down to the same depth. I've kind of left that about 26 mil because, as I say, we're coming back the other way, which will take quite a lot of that material out. Now, I think I probably could have done this the other way around, because I'm not quite sure how well that's going to stay in position, because obviously there's no material underneath it. So I need to be careful to keep my router bearing on that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this in position where the router's not going to be running. And hope that's enough to hold it in position. I don't think there's going to be any downward pressure on that little bit really. It's just to keep that from blowing into the pickup cavity. So I'll change the cutter out to a deeper cutter. We've got to take an additional 15 millimeters of material out of the bottom of these two little routs here. They're only quite small, so hopefully it shouldn't take too long. Okay, so I'm down as far as I can go now with the router bits I've got with the main template on. So I'm going to remove it and then just do the last few millimeters using the routes we've already got as our template. And I have to say, so far so good. It really does look quite nice. This material routes beautifully. And I think if we slide that in there, that can guide us to just cut that last little bit. And we need to remember to set this router up properly. So we're currently at 30, so we need to be at 35. And that should work out beautifully. And there we have the first set of routes done. That actually took quite a long time to do, and that little Katsu router really worked for its supper this evening, but it did handle it okay. Potentially could have gone a bit quicker with the bigger router, but at the end of the day we got where we needed to be. And there's just the tiniest little bit of fuzz around this top edge, so I'm just going to clean that off. Bit of 320 paper, and that's those done. And I have to say I'm super happy with them. They've come out really nice and clean. So next up we need to break out the other template. While we're working on the top, we need to find a way of referencing it absolutely spot on where it needs to be. We can do that with the center line, but we do need to find a way of referencing it backwards and forwards, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue. We can probably just use the bottom of the templates to kind of create some alignment. And then we can get the neck pocket cut. We can then turn the body blank over and start working on the trem cavity. Okay, it's the next evening and I've been having a little think about this overnight, and I think there's a better way to go about this. I'm a little bit anxious about cutting the neck pocket this early in the game. It is kind of the make or break feature of the guitar, and if I get it slightly wrong, we're kind of knackered. So instead, what I've decided to do is I'm going to reposition this template. And to do that, I've prepared a kind of little tiny block of wood that's just going to sit in there and stop that insert from going too far in, which means I can then locate this back onto it, and then just kind of give it a quick tweak to get it onto the center lines. And I'll just get a clamp on there, just to make sure that that stays in position. And then I'm going to take a transfer punch. I'm going to mark the positions of the bolt holes for the neck. And get this to the drill press. I'm going to drill all the way through with a 4mm drill bit, and then we can flip it over. We can locate this template using those 4 holes again with some 4mm drill bits and this. Line it up on the center line, and then we'll know that this is in exactly the right place on the back of the body blank. We can mark around it and then use that as our reference to locate the other template so that we can do the routes for the tremolo. I hope that makes sense. It'll all probably become apparent as we go through the process. Okay, so there's those holes drilled out, and we've located into them with the various pins, and then I've just got that lined up on the center line, and that all lines up really, really nicely. So then I'm going to use that and draw around the body shape. I'm also going to put in some of the lines from the routes so I can double and triple check that this is in the right place, because we will have those on the front face as well. So we'll just take all that off again and just start getting some measurements. So in theory now, if I flip this over, this should be the distance from the end of the blank to the route we put in for the trem block. That's pretty good. And then again, this is long enough. And that is kind of to within 0.5 millimeter or so. So I'm pretty confident that the outline that we've traced on the back matches the situation on the front. So if we take this template, line it up with what we've drawn on, and also make sure that the center lines are lined up, we can stick it in position, and this is what we need to cut out for our tremolo at the back. So that's all lined up back on the blank. It's matching up perfectly with the center lines marked at both the back and the front of the body, and also on the center lines marked in this little cutout for the tremolo. It matches up pretty well with the outline as well. So I'm just going to pencil in around this cutout for the tremolo like that, and then we can get this over to the drill press and hog out the bulk of the waste in there. And there isn't a huge amount to hog out in this instance. We're only really going to go in about 16 or 17 mil on this route. You have to remember that the pickup routes are kind of directly above this in the body, so we don't want to go in too deep. At 17, 18 mil, we'll leave probably 7 or 8 millimeters in the middle. So there's plenty of room, but you just need to bear that in mind. Okay, so I've just knocked a couple of little bits out of the middle of there with a chisel, just so there's a little bit less material to route out. So from there, we just need to get the template stuck back on again with a bit of super glue and masking tape, and we can get the router out. So that's all down to depth now. Again, that's routed really nicely. So I've just prepared a little block of wood, which I'm going to drop in there and put that insert back in, and that will just keep it at a nice level for my bearing to run on. This route has to now go down to within like 5 or so millimeters of the front of the guitar. So that's quite a lot of depth. So at some point, I think I'm probably going to have to take the templates off. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work because I need something to run my bearing off, but we'll see what we can do with that. I think I might have a longer cutter that I can use. I'll have a look for that in a minute, but I'll do the initial passes with one of the cutters that I've been using so far and take it from there. So we're through with this tremolo route, which is good, but we have still got a little bit of material to take off. I've marked on, you might just be able to see the line there. That is how much material I want left underneath the top. So looking at that, I've probably got about another 10 mil to go. So we'll get this turned over and see what we can do. And there it is, all completed. Looks very nice. It's routed super clean once again, no issues whatsoever. And on the other side, you might just be able to see it's left a nice little ledge there. So I think what we need to do now is a quick trial fit, and that works absolutely wonderfully. Obviously we'll need to position that properly at the appropriate time, but it fits and it looks like it will work in that hole. So that's all good. So next up on this, we need to mark up the final body shape, get it to the bandsaw, get it cut out. However, I think we've done quite enough for this episode, so I'm going to leave this one here. I'll be back in a couple of days' time when we do that. But until then, don't forget, hit that like button if you've enjoyed this. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Don't forget to leave a comment on what colour you think it might be. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.